Hi, friends. So today we're going to talk on the topic of forgiveness, the F word that a lot of people, myself included, don't really like to use and kind of have a misunderstanding about. So I have a lot of people in my Facebook group that are new. So for those of you who are new to me, my name is Morgan Danielle, and I am a life coach that specializes in helping women overcome trauma so that they can release dependency on food, substances, and toxic relationship patterns. So if you're watching this, I see a couple people hopped on. Go ahead and drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'm here from Cleveland, Ohio, and I love to see where all of you guys are from. And so if you are watching the replay of this, then hashtag replay. So we're going to just start diving in. Forgiveness is really misunderstood. So forgiveness isn't for the other person. Forgiveness is for ourselves. And I had to learn a really tough lesson in forgiveness. And so I'm going to tell you guys my experience because I think a lot of you can resonate. Hey, Judy from Ontario. So I had an experience with my daughter's paternal grandparents, and if you've been following me for a while, you've heard this story, but to make a long story short, my daughter's paternal grandparents, after her father passed away a few years ago, they tried to take my daughter away from me through the court system, just out of pure spite of not getting what they wanted. And so, they lied about me in court. They said that I was hooked on drugs, that I was a hooker, that, just saying all sorts of crazy things so that the judge would give them partial custody of my daughter. And so, during this court case, there was a lot of resentment. They were costing me so much money that I didn't have. I was putting myself through school, obviously a single parent. And so I just felt really betrayed. And I was angry, and I had such a strong grudge towards them. And what I ended up realizing was if I wanted to keep my sanity, I couldn't hold on to this grudge against them. And so during this time, I made a point to look at them through the lens of compassion and the lens of love, which wasn't an easy thing to do. Thinking about, I'm sure you can put yourself in your own position right now, thinking of somebody that has hurt you, that's betrayed you, that's abused you, that has done something to you that was really, really hurtful. You don't want to forgive that person because you feel like it gets them off the hook, that it means that what they did wasn't a big deal, or that you're letting them get away with the thing that they did to you. And that's actually not the case. And so when we choose to forgive either ourselves or other people, the forgiveness is purely for ourselves. When we're talking about forgiveness for other people, there's actually, there's this saying, resentment is like, or holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The fact that you're angry with this person or holding a grudge against this person, it doesn't affect that person. Really, it doesn't affect them on really much of any level. There's just that tension between you. And so when you think about it, there's a lot going on inside you. You're angry, you're hurt, your fists are clenched, you're constantly, not at peace, and you start to have a short temper. Maybe you start to get bitter. Maybe you start telling yourself this story over and over again that screw this person because they hurt me. What that does is that harms you. It takes away your peace. It takes away your ability to have an even temper. When you hold that resentment and that grudge, it seeps into all of the relationships in your life. It's not just that, relationship with that person that you're resenting. It starts to cause you to have a shorter temper with your other loved ones. It can cause you to get migraines. It can cause you to be stressed out. And it can cause you to lose sleep. It can cause, high blood pressure. There's all these things that resentment can actually do to your, not only your mental state, but your physical state. So I believe, and, from the work that I've done, every disease that we get, every illness we get is attached to an emotion, and resentment, cancer is directly attached to resentments and grudges, and so you holding that grudge is actually harming your physical body, your physical well-being. What illness is it's dis-ease in the body. So if we are constantly stressed out, if we're constantly cursing these people that hurt us all the time, that's causing stress. That's causing resentment. That's causing you to be in dis-ease. So when we think about it, when you decide to forgive that person, what that actually means is you are deciding that you're no longer going to let this control you. You're no longer going to let this person have power over you, because that's exactly what's going on right now. I've had a lot of experiences where I was in abusive relationships or I was betrayed, and me holding on to that anger and resentment, that person was still having control over me. When I was in these situations, I thought that if I held on to this anger and resentment, it was because they deserved it. They didn't deserve to have peace, but in reality, it was taking away my peace and causing me to constantly obsess about what this person was doing to me, or, reinforce the story of what happened, what they did to me. And when you continue to reinforce that story and say, I'm like this because, I'm holding this resentment because, it's like you're reliving this, this experience over and over and over again. And when you relive those experiences over and over again, it starts to change your personality. You went from being maybe this happy-go-lucky person to getting betrayed and not forgiving that person. And so you hold on to this resentment and you hold on to this grudge. And then what happens is you start to become bitter and you start to become angry and you start to become short-tempered. And so next thing you know, you went from this happy-go-lucky person to this person that yells at people all the time, that, has road rage, that somebody messed something up at the grocery store and you're lashing out at them. That's not you. So when we decide to forgive, we're doing ourselves a favor. When you look at it through that way, it makes it a lot easier. And I know that some of you who are watching this cringe at the thought of forgiving the person that wronged you, because I felt the same exact way. I didn't want to forgive my daughter's grandparents for lying about me in court and costing me $30,000. I didn't want to forgive them because they turned my whole life upside down. And they did it out of pure spite. But when I was holding on to that, it was making me sick. I was getting migraines every day. I remember when I would be in the shower and I'd just be thinking the whole time, I'm how could they do this to me? Screw these people, blah, 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 and just going in story after story after story. When I decided to forgive them, it didn't happen right away, but when I decided to forgive them and look at them through that lens of compassion, it made me realize that they were doing this because they were hurt. Hurt people hurt people. So if somebody's hurting you, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with, first of all, their son passed away. And I can't even imagine how I would feel if that were me. And I don't know what irrational things that I would do either. And so I had to take that into account. I had to think about, I knew that the paternal grandfather had some abuse in his past. And so when you think about that, when you think about how he was treated, people do the best they can with what they know. And so, that doesn't excuse his behavior. That doesn't let him off the hook for the wrong that he did. But it allows me to see that he didn't do it because he hated me, or, maybe, but it's more about that's how he was handling things because that's what he grew up with, right? So start to think about whether it's your abuser, whether it's somebody that betrayed you or hurt you or wronged you in any way. Start to look at them through that lens of compassion, because you're going to find that either that person's insecure, they have low self-love or self-worth, they don't think that they're good enough, they have to overcompensate or try to control people or hurt other people to make them feel better. Because, if somebody felt good about themselves, they wouldn't be out hurting other people, right? So when you look at it in that way, your shoulders start to go down, your fists start to unclench. You don't have that tightness in your chest. You're not holding all this pressure in your head. It starts to give you a different perspective. And some people are going to say they don't deserve to be forgiven. Like I said, it's not for them. It's for you. It doesn't allow them to get off the hook. It just allows you to wipe your hands off, say, okay, I'm letting this go. I'm not going to control me. Because when we hold on to those things, it doesn't let our wounds heal. It doesn't allow us to move forward because we're still focused on the past. Okay? So the only way that you can move forward and heal these wounds is if we forgive that person. And, willingness is really the first step. Maybe you're not ready to forgive, and that's fine. But all you have to do to begin that process is be willing to forgive that person. Maybe not now, maybe not a week from now, but just start that process with saying, I am willing to forgive this person. Maybe you haven't yet, but just having that intention, that's already starting to make a shift, okay? So starting out by that. And then, when you begin to forgive, you're going to notice peace in your life. You're going to notice the shift of healing. You're going to notice that you are beginning to have richer relationships, more fulfilling relationships. You're going to notice that you are not so maybe bitter about something anymore. You're not going to get so triggered. I used to get triggered all the time in really irrational ways. For those of you who don't know my story, I struggled with, prescription drugs and alcohol. And, I would always turn to that every time I got triggered. And as I started forgiving the people who hurt me, that began to lessen. And that began to start to dissipate. And so you're going to notice these things, maybe it'll be a big shift for you depending on how willing you are. Maybe it'll be a small shift. But there's going to be a shift. And so you just have to keep that in mind. And again, it's focusing on what benefits you're going to get from this, okay? So if you have this anger and resentment and this hurt inside you, that's going to not only harm that relationship that between that person who hurt you, but it's going to allow you to say you have trust issues because of that person that hurt you. Now you're going around bleeding on people who didn't hurt you because of this one person that betrayed you or abused you. And I'm not making that any less of what it is. I'm not saying that it's not a big deal. I'm just saying that, are you willing to have this person or this experience bleed on all your other relationships? If you're not forgiving, then you're not going to be able to trust people. Say, I had major trust issues. My ex was abusive to me. He cheated on me. He would lie to me constantly. He would steal my money, things like that. And after that relationship, I started distrusting everyone. I always thought someone was out to get me, whether they, and they weren't. And so when I decided to forgive that, it allowed me to have deeper relationships with other people because I wasn't holding everybody to that standard of what that person did to me. And so you're going to notice that your relationship with your kids are going to improve, with your friendships. If you're dating, then you're going to notice that improving. And so now I'm going to move on to forgiving yourself. Self-forgiveness. I've taught forgiveness with my clients, and this is a big part of the healing process that I teach. because it's so significant. So forgiving ourselves is just as important, if not more, than forgiving other people. I've had people tell me that they've done such horrible things that they can't forgive themselves, so they're a bad person. I'm going to tell you all, I've lied, I've cheated, I've stolen, I've manipulated, I've done all the things, okay? And that doesn't make me a bad person. I did the best I could with what I knew at the time, with all the hurt and the trauma that I had been through. My actions were based off of what I had been through. And the same goes for you. So if you've lied, if you've cheated, if you've stolen, if you've, whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean that you have to live your life focusing on your mistakes and not forgiving yourself because you've made a mistake. You have to acknowledge your mistake, and clearly if you're at this point, you've learned from it, and it's gotten you to where you are. We have to make mistakes in order to grow. And so if you've done something wrong, let yourself off the hook and notice that you've learned from your mistake and that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Because if you're spending all of this time resenting yourself and beating yourself up, what good is that doing? What good is that doing for you? What good is that doing for your family or your relationships? It's only going to attract more hurt. It's going to attract people that think you're bad or, that focus on your mistakes, because like attracts like. So what you're giving off, you're going to get back. So when you're able to forgive yourself, you're letting yourself off the hook. Again, you're showing yourself some compassion. We all need compassion. And by doing that, you're going to start making better shifts. You're learning. You're moving forward. If I kept focusing on all the bad things that I've ever done in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be here talking with you. And so what you all can do for forgiveness for yourself and for others, this is what I teach in my program. Start to think of all the people that you need to forgive. The people that you cringe the most at thinking about, those are the ones that you need to forgive the most. So whether that's a mom, a dad, a coach, an ex-boyfriend, whoever it may be, bring notice to that. And then I want you to write a letter to them. Not giving it to them or anything like that, but just write them a forgiveness letter. Write them a letter forgiving them for the hurt that they have caused you. And then I want you to write yourself a forgiveness letter to let yourself off the hook. And you're going to notice a shift after you do this. You're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel a sense of relief. And your life's going to start to change because you're going to be able to move forward instead of being trapped in the past. The only way that we can get to where we want to go is if we focus on the present and we're able to let go of the past. So I want everyone that is watching this video and that's going to do this exercise, I want you to tell me what your biggest takeaway from this training was. If anyone who's on here can put that in the chat, in the comments. Tell me what your biggest takeaway was from this. So I have nobody commenting in the comments, but if you're watching the replay on this, then drop your biggest takeaway and let me know how this exercise felt after you did it. So I hope this was helpful for you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Oh, Morgan said, I just caught the end. We'll watch the replay. Cool, Morgan. All right, bye everyone.